My KTM 690 and I have been together 12 years. And some might find that surprising considering that in my job I get to ride the latest and greatest adventure motorcycles every day of the week. So it's time to find out why this bike is still in my garage, and some of the reasons may surprise you. Now before we get started, this video is not going to be a KTM love fest. It will be a warts and all review of my experience owning this bike over the past 12 years. What's broken, what works, what hasn't, and the successes of this bike build. I go into detail about bikes set up for adventure, and the things I discuss are as relevant today as they were when I first built this bike. My 2011 KTM 690 Enduro has 60,000 kilometres on the clock, and most of those trips have been full-on adventure. It kicked off with riding it from London to Sydney in 2012, and I followed up with multiple Simpson Desert Crossings, including one that was unassisted. It's also taken on the tough tropical north, the Victorian high country and Flinders ranges. This bike has done the tough miles. Click on the top right of the screen to watch those adventures. Millions of viewers have and enjoyed them. So why is this bike still in my garage? It's a combination of nostalgia, off-road performance for adventure, and reliability in equal measure. The journey to reliability was a work in progress for a couple of years, but now it's sorted, and we'll talk about that in depth today. The first thing I notice when I start up my KTM 690 is the rawness of the engine. Compared to my 2021 Husky 701, it lacks refinement, but it more than makes up for it in the brute force when it roars into life over 6,000 revs. The mid-range feels far more gruntier than the 701. It's like a snorting, hoof-stomping stallion with those crazy eyes. You know you're alive when you're on board.
Drifting. You just hear it, it roars. You know you're alive when you're on a 690 like this one.
It doesn't do city traffic well, but get it in that more open terrain and it eats that up. That said, it can sit on freeway speeds all day very economically, around 4 litres per 100 kilometres. But hover around the 140 kilometre an hour mark and you start sucking fuel. So let's put it out there. The suspension on this old 690 is superior to what I have on my 2021 Husky 701 and to any of the mid-sized twins I've recently ridden. It's outstanding. It's equally at home pounding out fast gravel miles or taking on the rough stuff. The only thing superior that I've ridden recently is my Husky 501, and that suspension has been fully reworked. But it hasn't always been like that. The 275mm travel front and rear has been dramatically improved with valving in the forks and rear shock and appropriate springs for my weight. I also have an X-Trig system that allows me to easily alter preload on the rear shock of the bike with an 8mm socket. Another strength of the bike is its agility and lightweight. The wet weight of a standard bike is 150 kilograms. Mine comes in at 176 kilograms, fuel full at 26 litres and ready for a round-the-world adventure.
Now this is the thing with the 690. I'm deliberately going to get myself into trouble here. I'll drop down into here. Now if you're on a twin now, you've got a lot of problems trying to get out of here. Whereas this, boom, you're out.
Over the years, the bike has evolved, and underpinning that evolution has been three forces: enhancing adventure capability, improving ergonomics for long rides, and improving reliability. In 2012, the bike was originally prepared by John Mitchinson of Rally Road Products for the London to Sydney adventure. At that stage, it was fitted with a range of accessories, including an Evo 1 fuel tank system with no tower. I relied on an OEM small screen for protection, and it worked well. In 2013, now back in Australia, and in preparation for an unassisted Simpson Desert Crossing, I fitted the more streamlined Evo 2 tank system and integrated tower. As well as looking like a Dakar racer, it offered more rider protection for those high-speed runs in the outback. The rock-hard OEM seat was replaced by a far more comfortable seat concept seat. Rally pegs and the 3cm bar extenders were also added. Oxford heated grips completed the upgrade. Whilst I love the look of the Evo 2 tower, the trade-off is you are putting about 3 kilograms of weight over the front wheel, which in hindsight is not useful in desert sand. I wouldn't dream of removing the tower, but it's interesting my Husky 701 relies on a small OEM screen for rider protection. I'm just not a tower fan. To this day, there's not many bikes that come close to my KTM690's versatility for adventure, and that's the primary reason it's a keeper. So what are the key features that make it so good?
The standing position on this bike is excellent, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is I've got rally pegs, and rally pegs are wide and long, so you can stand up all day really comfortably. And the other thing is I've got 3cm bar risers, and that just puts me in the ideal position to ride this bike for ages standing up. But equally, when you're sitting down, it's got a seat concept seat, and when I was riding from London to Sydney, the standard seat was so hard, and I had a piece of sheepskin in there. But now with the seat concept seat, it's fine. I can sit on this bike all day and punch out big kilometres. One of the strongest features of this bike is its fuel range, and real world, I've actually tested it, is 550 k's, but I'm sure I could have got a little bit more out of it. Now, the great thing about this fuel system is the tanks, there are 4 tanks, and they're equally distributed around the bike. It's a pain in the backside when you're filling up because you've got to undo these 4 caps to fill it up. But when you're riding it and it's fuel full, it's incredibly balanced. And all of them have their own fuel cock, so you can turn them off and isolate them. So when you're riding along, what I tend to do, if I've got a lot of weight on the back of the bike, I generally empty this rear tank first, and that just balances up the bike a bit. So that is one of the strongest features of this bike. The other thing about it is you can see these 2 nuts here, and in fact this whole cowling can come off in minutes, probably a minute. You just undo that and undo that, the tank comes off, and this whole cowling is only held on by 4 tanks. Now, one of the things we discovered along the way when we've been riding the bike is the corner of the tank there is a little bit vulnerable. So Philippe and I, a good mate who had the same bike as me, we made these acrylic resin guards just for that edge of the fuel tank. But otherwise they've been problem free. Another strong feature of the bike is the pannier racks, and they serve a couple of purposes. Yes, they take a range of soft luggage, they also take rotor packs and a whole range of other different stuff. But the other function of these is to reinforce the frame of this bike to take weight. At the end of the day, the rear of this bike, all it is plastic fuel tank. And in the older bikes, 2008 through for quite a long while, the rear of the bike would actually get loose if that wasn't reinforced. And if you look at this, the frame of the pannier rack is reinforced straight to the frame proper, and then comes up and for maximum benefit connects to the top of the frame. So I haven't had any trouble. You know, the bike is 13 years old and the frame is as rigid as anything. Countershaft sprocket protector is a cracker, very solid, and stops, you know, if this chain derails, cracking into your ignition system. So yeah, that's been a great bit of kit as well. Now here's one we homemade, and this is with the help of Philippe. He made these when our soft luggage, when we wanted it to go a bit further to the back of the bike, it was getting a bit warm with the muffler, so Philippe developed this, and it's been a cracker. It's been very resilient. It's been on the bike over 10 years. Works brilliantly. And there's a little Foopy with the acro exhaust that used to have like a carbon graphite end on it, and that just blew off over the years. And what I've done, I've just bolted the rear end of the muffler in. Still works all right. And there's my unique bit of engineering for rear blinkers. Everyone just shakes their head when they see that, but it works. This bash plate is a cracking design. Not only does it protect the engine, but it also extends way back and protects the hydraulics for the back brake, and it, you know, increases the strength around there, so to prevent that being vulnerable. But it also has this 3-litre tank in it. Now this tank can be used for a range of things. It was designed as for Dakar to provide 3 litres of water, and you could also put 3 litres of fuel in it. Or what I did when riding from London to Sydney, when we were doing, you know, around 18,000 Ks, I had to have an oil change. So I put all the oil needed for the oil change in here. There's a little stopcock down here. You can disconnect that and you can put that down through the bike, and you can empty that oil out and then put it into your engine. So a very useful bit of kit that, and it's been smashed around, and it's as strong as an ox. As you can imagine, having a bike 13 years, the bike gradually evolves and gets more doodads and farkles on it, and some go off and some go on. For this bike, it didn't have a tower on it, and now it's got a tower on it. The benefits of the tower, it gives you better wind protection. Initially the tower had a fiberglass front on it, but you couldn't see over it when things got tight and technical, and I couldn't see where the front wheel is, and now I've got a clear screen, which makes a hell of a difference. You'll notice in terms of the setup, you've got your navigation here with the Garmin, got a 12-volt socket outlet you can put USB in, obviously your speedo, and down here you've got Oxford heated grips. The thing that hasn't been a success are these mirrors. I'm not really a fan of them. I've kept them on the bike, they've been on it since new, but if I have my way, that'll be the last modification I make to this bike, and I'll put my OEM flippy mirrors on the bike, because I just love them. They're easier and simple and they work.
Time to talk about reliability. During our 12 years together, our relationship at times has been rocky, and I put that down to her commitment to start. So let's put the reliability experience front and centre. Around 10,000 Ks, the fuel pump went in Russia. Around 14,000 kilometres, the exhaust roller rocker arm failed in China. Around 18,000 kilometres, the speedo died in Australia. Around 22,000 kilometres, the fuel injector blocked and eventually died in Cobar, Australia. Around 40,000 kilometres, the rear end of the acro exhaust just blew off. At 55,000 kilometres, the fuel cap blocked. On a number of occasions, the throttle body has blown off the inlet manifold. When the engine gets hot, it has a tendency to stall. But most of these challenges were in the first years of our relationship, and there are fixes to a couple of them. Firstly, when the engine gets hot, I've fitted a fan thermostat switch to the cooling fan that initiates at 88 degrees centigrade rather than the standard 105 degrees centigrade. So it just keeps that engine a little bit cooler. Although I now always carry a spare fuel pump, I haven't lost another. After the fuel injector blockage, I fitted a 20 micron fuel filter into the fuel line and haven't had any problems since. The new roller rocker arms are far more reliable and I haven't had any further problems, and the speedo is going well. And the bike is now very reliable and I've had thousands of kilometres on it without a problem. So, would I recommend you buy a second-hand one to kick off your adventure motorcycling career? Well, there's a cautious yes and no in equal measure is my answer, for a number of reasons. For those new to motorcycling, this bike is very tall, which makes it awkward to manoeuvre in tight stuff sometimes. It also has a powerful mid-range with no traction control nor ABS. The systems on the latest 690s are very sophisticated and can save you from crashing. On this bike, twisting the throttle has ramifications and can put you in a hospital. Even if you could get hold of one in great condition, I think it would be useful to have some mechanical knowledge. I don't have much, but I do know how to change a fuel pump and fuel injector. But if you do get your hands on one for a reasonable price, there are stacks of aftermarket accessories to convert one into your ultimate adventure slayer that leaves most of the latest models for dead, and all at a reasonable price. And the reward? An excellent handling, powerful, light adventure mount that can take you anywhere. It will make you smile, and that's why mine is staying right by my side. Thanks for watching Motorcycle Adventure Dirt Bike TV. If you've liked what you've seen, subscribe. There's so much more to this channel.